All right, we have security consultant with us, Tony Fueto, with us in the studio. We'll be talking about these as we move along. Now, the police spokesperson was talking about the 33 people being charged for terrorism and all of that. And one would ask the question whether why terrorism? Why not maybe treason or assault or murder directly? Why terrorism? Are you seeing it from any other window?
Let me start by saying good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Exactly.
You know, well, the police is just trying to pretentiously follow the fact that IPOB is been proscribed and also tagged a terrorist organization in our own local definition of terrorism that some of us see as very pretentious. Basically, I want to assume that that was why the police is talking about terrorism. But at the level of the police, I believe that they should understand better what terrorism is all about and the signature of the terrorist groups and organization. When my first reaction when I was hearing the police spokesperson, he was not even too convinced about what he was reading. It was obvious that even deep down in him, he was not convinced. From the report we read and also from the testimonies of the people that you interviewed, you will know that when a man is speaking the truth, you will know. You know, there's the psychology that is attached to the truth. The man said, I don't even know what is happening. Even IPOB itself had come out to say that they should release the traders. IPOB that have come out to say, look,
those guys are not their
those
members.
people, they are not even their members. They are not even their members. So, for goodness sake, if an organization says, we don't know these people, and police is holding them, for what reason?
Yeah, but couldn't all that also be a tactic to have them released? Because when you say they are not our members and they get released, it's like a done deal too.
No, I agree to the extent that, but in most cases, organizations like that don't deny their members. Organizations like that, they don't, at whatever cost. Instead of denying their members, they will tell you, they will give you ultimatum to release them, or else they will unleash their own definition of mayhem. You don't see a Boko Haram, for example, coming to say that this is not our member or that. If they are not accepting the liability of any attack, it simply means they didn't do it, because it's always a credit on their own part to say we did it. You know, that's one. So as far as IPOB is concerned, I think that the government is just using a hammer, a sledgehammer to kill an ant.
Okay.
It's not worth it.
So is it likely that this could take us back to where we were when Boko Haram, like some experts have said, there was a time when Boko Haram was not necessarily or was more or less a harmless group, but because of the handling of Boko Haram, it turned out and involved. There are two different things. But how do you assess the handling of this whole IPOB thing from the issue of proscription and being defined as a terrorist organization, you know, both, you know, by the government and
you know,
authorities?
IPOB is there
a danger that this could evolve into something more?
It definitely will.
Dangerous?
It definitely will. I sound very absolute. And the reason is because over the years, Nigeria has built a culture of violence. Until there's major violence, the government is not going to invite you to a roundtable talk. Today, the government is begging Boko Haram for a talk, and Boko Haram seems not to be ready or interested in the talk. And you and I can see what is happening in the Northeast. If IPOB, for example, as it is now, is still a manageable thing, yes, agree that it is more of an ideological thing. We want to go. Freedom is very important to everybody. They feel that, look, we are tired of the entity called Nigeria. For me, as far as I'm concerned, it is not a sacrosanct thing to say that our unity is undebatable. All we need to do is call these people together. If you can call Boko Haram that have killed hundreds of thousands of people for no reason, there's no reason on earth why you can't call IPOB and call a mass up together and say, look, What is the problem? If they have 10 requests and we are able to meet 2, 3, you know, understandably.
Speaking of those requests, let me just quickly throw this in. The IPOB, proscribed IPOB, they've listed a number of things that they want government to do on its part: end criminal prosecution of its members, recognition of rights of individuals as guaranteed by the Constitution, compensation for all members killed during Operation Python Dance, which happened September of last year, of course, and prosecution of security men that allegedly murdered IPOB members last year.
There is nothing outrageous about any of those requests. Or, as far as I'm concerned, it's just summarized in just one sentence: need for justice, equity and fairness. Every region in this country, we all ask for the same thing: justice, equity and fairness. I don't think that if, look at El-Zakzaki's followers, they troop into Abuja almost on bi-weekly, on regular, in their hundreds of thousands. Look at the kid glove. I've been in Abuja where security agencies had to even escort them and make sure that they do not cause violence. We will follow them through. They will do their protest. They accept when they feel that, okay, there's you see them also react violently. But look at IPOB, for goodness sake. It's not the same thing. I have not seen the numerical strength of IPOB being as much as that of El-Zakzaki's followers. And we are not hearing of this high-handedness. And national security-wise, the followers of El-Zakzaki are more dangerous to national security compared to that of IPOB, as it is now. And we have seen it over time. So I think that the government should be fair in dealing with the IPOB people. If you look at what is happening in the Northeast today, then you look at what is happening in the Southeast. For goodness sake, they are not the same thing. These people are agitating to say, okay, we want our own state. Now, for whatever reason, you and I, we're not happy about so many things. This agitation
that you talk about, it was what led Nigeria, and I mean, it was what led us to the Civil War.
Very well.
Yes.
And it's still there, and it will still continue to be there until we fairly attend to all sectors of this country. When people are crying for restructuring, it boils down to the same issue. If this country is well restructured in a manner that there is no victor, there is no vanquish, in a win-win manner, I am very sure that anybody or group of people that come subsequently to say we want X and Z, the people themselves, not even the government, the people themselves will attack those group of people. But as it is now, look, an average Igbo man or woman, whether you like it or not, has a Biafran spirit in him or her. Those that are still keeping quiet, it is because they are in an advantage position. It is because they have political appointments. And maybe because their businesses will be affected if they come all out. But if you interview and interact with the average Igbo man, he will tell you that he's a Biafran in spirit. And I think these are areas that we need to
figure out what you mean by Biafran in spirit, because the Igbo person has been seen as the most, well, I mean, an untribalized person who would thrive any part of the country.
No, it doesn't make any difference.
Able to put out
this is not tribalism.
Not tribalism. We've not been able to put out the narrative of, look, Ezek, for example, was born in Zungeru, just like Ojukwu was born in Zungeru, and there's so many Igbos who were born in the north and northerners in the southeast, and you know, all of that. We're not putting out the right narrative, and just like you said, the issue of justice is what every segment of the country is calling for.
Everybody.
So how do we bring ourselves back from the precipice, whether we're talking about Boko Haram or, you know, IPOB and the rest of the non-state actors who are taking up arms against the nation?
Now, you see, what I'm saying is this. Everybody has a foundational impression of who he is. But it does not in any way whatsoever affect the fact that, you know, he's a Nigerian, for example. Now, he becomes ostracized if he sees circumstances that surround him as being not too welcoming. The same thing happened some years ago. The Odua people were agitating too. If you remember, right in this country, the Odua people were agitating, you know. And you also have issues where the Arewatu were not even too happy. But what we are saying is this. The government should handle every section of the country with fairness and justice. You don't handle crisis in the north with kid gloves, and you come to the southeast, you are handling it with iron hand. For goodness sake, I personally don't see IPOB as a terrorist organization, as a security practitioner. Yes, they may have their own excesses. I agree. They may have excesses to the extent that maybe at times they go close down people's shop because they want them to participate in their riots. They go about the street, cause some violence and the like. It has happened in other parts of the country. Odua at a time was having the same issue. OPC at a time. You have the Besu boys too. They had the same issue with their community at a time. You have the Arewa youths too. At a time they had the same issue in their community. That does not in any way translate to a terrorist organization. It doesn't in any way.
All right. Well, the debate about whether they're terrorists or not terrorists, that's overtaken by event now because they've been proscribed. But the point there is, what caused this recent face-off between them and the police had to do with them demanding for a referendum and going to Nnewi Market to close shops and tell people that unless there's referendum, everybody should boycott the coming election and all of that. Now, we have the leader of the group in faraway Jerusalem. He issued a statement supporting his boys and giving them encouragement and all of that, and that they should boycott the election if there is no referendum. We know that the laws in Nigeria doesn't recognize referendum. So how more complex are these issues?
I think that they are not approaching their request strategically.
Okay.
And that actually happened to be the reason why they are now being, the police is after them.
Okay.
The normal thing you do, you have members of the Senate, members of the House of Rep at federal level and at state level. If you are very sure of what you want, all you need to do is lobby through your people at the state level and at the federal level. Let them come to the National Assembly and make demand either for the amendment of the Constitution. See, when the pressure is much, for example, if all the senators in the southeast and all the members of the House of Rep in the southeast are unanimous about a particular thing that affects them and they think affect them, for goodness sake, all of us in all other parts of the country, we will sit down and listen.